Summary of what this video is about. I had a 1-month temp job replacing somebody who was out on leave. At the end of the 1 month, I got a reference letter. It was sealed in an envelope. I did not know how horrible the reference letter was the next day. I had a job interview for a 6-month position. The interviewer opened my reference letter and read it and asked a lot of questions about why this reference was so horrible when I was claiming I'd done a terrific job. She believed me. She believed that the person I replaced had sabotaged me, and I was hired on the spot. Okay, that was the summary. Now let's go back and I'll give you more detail of what happened. A few weeks before this 1-month temp job, I had signed up with HR. They'd sent me out on a 1-day job, half day, 2 days. It was mostly data entry and filing, and both of those things I'm good at. I'm a fast typist, and I'm pretty good at filing. I don't mind filing. I get a ridiculous amount of pleasure out of a filing system that's well organized and putting things in their place. And that's just me. Also, once I get the hang of the filing system, if you've got a table covered in files, it makes things go a lot faster if you start grouping them into groups of things that are going to be in similar filing cabinets before you even start. You don't file by picking up one file at a time, carrying it to the case, and coming back for a second one. You try and batch the work. Same with the data entry. If there's a way to, once you've done it for half an hour, you can begin to see ways in which you could be more efficient and do less work for yourself. So I'm good in that way, and most of the jobs that I was sent on, I was done in half the time. So HR already had a record that the employers who had picked me up for a day or a day and a half were really thrilled that I got the work done. While I was there, I got really used to working alongside other temps who were doing similar work, and pretty soon they were telling me I must slow down and type slower because I'm making them look bad, or I must relax or smile more or take more breaks or something because I'm making them look bad. So I went and interviewed with Susan for this 1-month temp job. She was taking a 1-month leave of absence. The job involved a bunch of filing and typing letters. She had a pretty brand new typewriter I hadn't seen before. Remember, this is 1989. Nobody's got computers yet. Everybody's got electric typewriters or plain typewriters. This is some kind of electronic thing that I hadn't seen before, but I figured I'd get the hang of it. She warned me that quite often the boss would come in and he'll give you one letter that needs to go to 30, 40 people, and that will keep you busy for days. Okay, so 1 month on the job. The first week I had a tiny bit of typing to do, a bunch of filing that took no time at all, and the rest of the time I was taking a class at that point, so I sat at my desk actually studying. Boss did finally come in and he gave me a letter to type, and I typed it. And I'm a pretty fast typist, and that was when I got the hang of this typewriter. This thing had a little window. It was electronic, and it had a window, and it was curious because you would type, and it would not actually start printing ink on paper until you typed a whole line. And then it would suddenly go into a rat-a-tat-tat and type off the whole line. Kind of cool. So I typed the letter, gave it to the boss, and a few hours later he gave me the same letter again, but to someone else. I had left the typewriter on, and this letter, the previous letter, was sitting there in the window. So, and there's arrow keys on the keyboard. What do they do? So I start playing around, and I realize you can arrow back through this letter, the first one that I typed, and get to the address and delete it and type in a new address. Then you go down to the bottom of the document, but then it types the entire letter. That was the cool part, because as it started typing, I realized what it's going to do. In the meantime, I can get up and I can walk over to the kitchen with my mug and get some more coffee. And that was when things got kind of freaky, because Susan had never done that. She didn't know that the typewriter would type all by itself. And when I got up, the whole office came to a stop, and the boss was staring, and everybody was looking at me like this was some kind of magic out of Hogwarts, that this typewriter is typing by itself. Cool. People were talking, and somebody said, that's a pretty new typewriter. There's got to be a manual or something. I went and rootled around the desk, and I found the manual at the back of the drawer, and it was still wrapped in plastic. So I opened it, and I got cracking reading, and I got the hang of it. And it was really very easy, and I don't know why Susan didn't do that, other than I'm guessing now that I'm older that some people are just really freaked by technology and they don't want to learn something new, or they've made up their minds that they're not capable. So a couple of days later, the boss did in fact bring me that letter that he wanted to go to 40 different people, and he assured me not to worry. It would take me days, not a thing. It would take Susan 2 or 3 days to get through 40 letters like this. Well, I by now had learned how to store that letter in memory, and you could store it and you could turn off the typewriter and go home, and the next day turn it back on and it would still be in memory. Oh my God! So those 40 letters took me about 2 hours, and the boss was dazzled. Of course, at the end of that month, Susan came back. The boss asked whether I would stay an extra day and teach Susan how to use her typewriter. And I said, oh, sure. And I thought Susan would be thrilled, because when she got the hang of this, it's going to save her so much time. And yeah, not so much. I haven't ever met somebody who was phobic about new technology, or was just used to doing things her own way and did not want to learn something new, even if it saved her time. I couldn't wrap my head around that. At the end of the day, I did ask her if I was going to be getting a reference letter. I had a job interview actually the very next day. So she said, oh, okay, don't worry, I'll take care of it. Packing up for 5 o'clock, Susan handed me a sealed envelope with and it had written on it reference for me. This is the first reference letter I've gotten in the United States. I have no idea what the convention is. I forget all about it. I've got an interview the very next day. The letter stays in my purse. At the interview, which is going very well, the interviewer asks what I've been doing recently, and I talk about the job and that I thought I did very well, and I volunteer that, oh, they gave me a reference letter. My interviewer, I think her name was Marjorie, she said what did the boss think of your work? And I said, as far as I know, he thought I was outstanding. I did 2 days of work in 2 hours. He was thrilled. He asked me to train Susan when she got back. And Marjorie immediately saw what the problem would be in that scenario. The letter said basically that my work had been adequate, and it was signed with the boss's name. And Marjorie said, I don't believe the boss wrote this letter. I believe Susan wrote this letter. And what we can do about that remains to be seen. For now, you're hired, and you're going to be on this job for 6 months, and at the end of 6 months, I'm going to write you a fantastic letter. It is up to you whether you want to pursue this. This is fraud. She's deliberately trying to sabotage your career. This is actually, you've got a legal case here. You could go to HR with this and get her into a load of trouble, because this is a really rotten thing for someone to have done to you. I never pursued it with HR. A month later, I ran into a couple of the other staff members in that office, and they asked how things were going. And I said, it was odd, because I thought I did a fantastic job, and I got a pretty lousy reference letter. And they both said, Susan wrote it. She waited till you were at lunch, and she typed it, and she signed it. He wasn't there all day. You should tell him. I didn't. Maybe that was me being a wuss, or me just being kind. I didn't. It dropped off the to-do list. So anyway, it got me a fantastic job that lasted 6 months, and after that I went on to something even better. So it all worked out for the best.